in your goodness. Rob in your goodness. What?
Worshipping.
Yeah, it was great.
Playing with each other.
I was
Cool.
just coming in with the baritone or whatever,
you
bass
sing?
or whatever.
Have you actually been trained to sing?
What, right
You've
there?
got quite a good singing voice.
No, I used to sing all the time. I was a
serious?
singer in a band, yeah.
You serious?
Yeah. I mean, not like that.
Right.
Death cannot hold you.
Okay. So guys, it's great to be back into community groups. And this week, Mark...
Can you see this in the shot or no? So it just looked like I was randomly touching the clouds. Okay, keep going. We're good.
It's great to be back into the community groups this week. And the big issue, or the big issue that we bring out of 1 Corinthians 7, 6-9, is this whole idea that Paul's talking about, which is singleness. You know, and whether it's a calling or whether it's an identity.
Right.
And we would say that our identity is in Jesus. Sometimes it can be difficult for people that are single. So I wonder if you could touch that a little bit. And the other thing is that you mentioned is that singleness is really good in the sense that we can be much more flexible in the kingdom. God can move us, position us, do stuff. So could you kind of draw a few things out about that?
Yeah, I just think that's the big idea of the whole day is because it's the big idea of what Paul talks about in the passage. He's like, look, there's people who are unmarried, there's people who are widows, and to be honest, there's so much work to do in the kingdom. I wish you would remain like me. The main reason you won't is because you're going to burn with passion sexually toward people and blah, 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 blah. But if you could be like me, we're going to get more done for the kingdom. And so pretty well, period. I mean, that's the big idea. It's like, look, if you're married, you're going to get swapped up in all kinds of what he calls worldly passions or whatever, just stuff, right? As we talked about, mortgages and kids' soccer games and you know. And he's like, man, it'd be cool if a bunch of you didn't do that because that stuff's, you know, whatever. And actually just were committed to kingdom work all the time, 24 hours a day. So there's great people I know who are missionaries and, you know, as I talked about, young adults, people right now who are in that mode and they're just like, I want to serve Jesus, and they're doing a great job. And to be honest, I remember Larry Osborne, one of my mentors. He was addressing a room full of church planters and church leaders, thousands of people. And he said, you know, one of the things that we have to be careful of is opportunity versus limitation. And you might have all the opportunity in the world, but your situation in life is going to limit you. So for instance, if you decided to get married in life, guess what, Pastor so-and-so, and you had kids, you're not going to be able to travel 365 days a year promoting your book, sitting around only writing and preaching and doing whatever while your family sits on their corner and suffers. You got married. That was a decision you made, which means your kingdom impact in the regard of what you think is kingdom impact is going to be limited, and you better figure out what that limitation is. And he gave an example of he was writing, he was killing it, and his kid walked up to him when the kid was like 11 or 12. He said, Daddy, you don't play with me when you're writing books.
Right.
And so he said, you know what? I'm not going to write books until all my kids are done college. So he never wrote another book for 13 years. Because he said, that's not everybody's scenario, but he said, you got to understand, you have all the opportunity in the world, but you got to be limited. So marriage is going to limit you in some ways. It's going to open up. I mean, I'm a better leader because I'm married, right? I think if I wasn't married, I'd be a gong show. I'd be all over the place. I wouldn't have a focused, limited, and then my wife is smarter than me, stronger than me, better strategist than me, all of those things. So she, you know, in that sense makes me better. But there's some people who it's like their spouse takes away from their ability to lead and do well in, you know, the kingdom above. So anyways, not because they're meaning to. Well, some people because they're meaning to and they're just not, they're weaker or not wired for it or whatever, needy. But some people, it's just, you got married and now your time and your energy and your money is now geared toward this. So anyway, all that to say, I think that's what Paul's major concern is. So point being, it's an apologetic for singleness. You single people, it's not necessarily plan B that you're single. Jesus was single, Paul was single, you know, all these great people throughout history have been single, and so understand that might be your call. Now, I know most people, because they want companionship, because they want sex, because they want relationship, they don't pine for that in their life. That's why 96% of people get married. I understand that. That's fair, but Paul's saying, man, it'd be cool if some of you remained single and did mission. So
Okay, good. So let's grab that as groups. Let's think about, especially about singles. We need to be praying for singles. We need to think about how God can use us. Sometimes we can use situations in our lives where they're tough as excuses. And what Paul would say, there is no excuse. He's talking about just see how God is meaning to use you in the kingdom. And if you have that capacity as a single, to be used more in the kingdom, let's just see kind of the areas that we can be used in. Yeah. And also, a willingness to actually fulfill the will of God in our lives to do that. So let's just discuss that as groups. So, second issue, Mark.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about the idol of family. And one of the guys I was reading in the Gospel Coalition, he was talking about how one of the acceptable idols within kind of evangelical Christianity is this idol of family. Yeah. So I'd like you to talk about that. And Jesus talked about in Mark. He said that that when people were trying to hoist him out of a meeting, his mother and his brothers were doing that.
Yeah, it'd be a good text to when we throw to the question to read together as a community group. The Mark 2 one.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
unless you had another plan.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
This is my plan.
You're the boss.
No, you're the boss.
No, sir.
I don't want to wear that.
You are the boss. This is yours, baby.
He said that these are my mother's
words. Yes.
Okay?
The people who are doing the will of God.
You got it. And then the second part of that was we want to talk about church family. So that first thing is, what did you mean by that we can idolize by family? And the second part of that is kind of, what did you mean by we can get caught up in civilian pursuits?
Yeah. So the family thing is difficult because family is a good thing. And, what we talk about even as a church or often is idols can be good things that become God things. They become things that they're not always bad things. Not like, some pagan, like Egyptian, I'm bowing down to the statue. It's like, it's family, it's money, it's relationships, it's a spouse. It's these things that simply start driving, there's a few things, but they start driving the main thing is you derive all your meaning, your joy, your purpose, your identity from them.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then I think Keller says, if you want to know what your idol is, list out a bunch of things that you think might be your idol.
Right.
And then ask a few questions. I can't remember all the questions. He has a great book called Counterfeit Gods, where he talks about this. But one of the things he says is, if it was taken from you, would life feel unlivable?
Right.
That might be an idol.
Yeah.
Right. And so for a lot of people, family is like, that's it, man. If I lost my family, my whole soul would be gone. I had no purpose, no direction, no meaning in my life, no joy, no identity. So that's what it is. So at that point, you've got to ask the question, are you willing not to sacrifice family in the sense of like you're going to walk away from them and do what the Lord tells you? That's not, if you've been covenanted to someone, he's never going to tell you to leave someone so you can do his work. That's that's not the point. The point is are you and your family at a place where you're like, man, I know we're happy here in this great home and the comfort of this, but if God called us to up and move or use our home to reach our neighbor or take a bunch of our money and use it for whatever, that it wouldn't be this thing that would hold you back as well. We got our family here. Or if your kid came to you and they're 20 and they said, I believe Jesus is calling me to do this, or go to school in this other continent so I can learn more about whatever, and so that you would no, you got to be close to me because we have Christmas together and we have turkey and we do Saturdays together, whatever. Like, it's that kind of thing that Jesus is saying. The new reality in the kingdom, of course, he's speaking to a culture that was so family-oriented. Yeah. All the traditional conservative Jewish values were your heirs and your children and your family, which is, 70% of cultures still today are very like that. Very traditional family-oriented. Yeah. You need the family to survive and security and money and all. They run the farm and all that. Yeah. And Jesus is saying, imagine a situation where the spirit is thicker than blood. Like that now the family of God is this transnational community. Yeah. Geography doesn't matter anymore. Race doesn't matter anymore. A Chinese brother, a South Korean brother, a Ugandan, whatever. Like that, it's all gone in the kingdom. Like this is now there's people and this. Okay, so this is fascinating. I think I've shared this before, but it was it was a few weeks ago where the guy was dropping the atomic bomb on Nagasaki, and he was saying, I have Catholic brothers and sisters down there. Why am I'm doing something for a national agenda, but my spiritual family should transcend my national family, so what am I killing them for?
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are Catholic sisters of mine,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that idea, like, that what is family?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And so that's the question Jesus is raising in Mark chapter 2. I think it's fascinating in a Jewish culture that would have idolized family so much. And he's going, be careful that because really doing the will of God versus the will of the family is actually what you're called to. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So let's discuss that as groups. Let's think about the areas where we can idolize family, idolize spouse, idolize each other. But I think Mark's this big idea of what the kingdom is as a family is going to be something that's going to change the world, or has changed the world, and will continue to change the world. So let's discuss that as groups, and how God is drawing us into His family, and also how we can be the family of God to other people around us, especially singles too.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so Mark, the last thing is the question you posed was this whole idea is what is your life defined by? Whether we're single or married or whatever. How does that impact our lives? Jesus was a single guy. He came and changed the world. Okay, and he mentioned that we should be focusing more on the eternal rather than the temporary. Could you unpack that a little bit for us? Why did he say that, and how should that impact us?
Yeah. I think that Hebrews talks about the idea for the joy set before him, he endured the cross.
Yeah.
So I think that verse for me is one of the most fascinating verses, because what it does is it says, how could Jesus suffer temporarily? What did he think about? What was his, like all of us are motivated by something.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe you tough it out in a tough job because you're motivated by the money.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I doing this job? Well, at least I get paid. That's why I'm here. Like,
Yeah.
for the money set before you, you endured the job.
Yeah.
Right? So with Jesus, what was the thing that gave him the constant daily motive of like, hey, I'm going to suffer, and I became poor, I became a baby, I'm in this wilderness. It's terrible. It's terrible. 30 years of suffering when you've experienced the kind of whatever, like glory and delight that he had for eternity past.
Yeah.
That's what makes the incarnation fascinating.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't begin to exist when he became a person. It's like he always. So anyway, so he comes in, he suffers. What was the thing? It was the joy that he was going back to. It was like, I know pleasure. I know delight, and it's electric. It's unreal. Yeah. And that is the reason I can do this temporary suffering thing. That's the point of Hebrews.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, what is the thing in the midst of our life that should be driving us through the trials, change, the things that we're like, hey, I'm not going to go and just do whatever I want in regard to earthly pleasure. What is that?
Yeah.
It's the promise of heavenly pleasure.
Yeah.
It's the fact that there's treasure coming. If you're disciplined in the short term, there's very long-term gain.
Yeah.
Like long-term gain that you can't even imagine. Billions of years of delight and pleasure, blah, blah, blah. So let that motivate you in your singleness to be holy and obedient and faithful, because there's something coming better than marriage.
Yeah, amen.
Right? There's something coming that makes marriage look so bad that we're not even being married.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's retired. That was all a pointer.
Yeah.
The sexual pleasure, the relational pleasure, the dinners, the meals together, the friendship, all of that was all just little cracks coming up through concrete.
Yeah.
Little pointers that went, oh, by the way, there's this thing.
Yeah.
That's a little echo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you caught it. You're like, where does that song come from? And you're like, oh, don't even. Because that's true, now stay faithful in your life. Now stay obedient in your life.
Yeah.
Now stay holy in your life. All of it. So I think that's what he's constantly trying to tell us.
Yeah.
He's trying to pull the veil back and go, there's something waiting that's way better. So be faithful in the present. So anyways, that's what I think he's trying to do.
So let's grab that as groups. Let's think about that amazing thing, that kind of picture that Mark's painted, that Jesus is opening up the veil. Even coming to planet Earth, he was showing us what the kingdom is like. And let's talk about our motivations in life. What is really motivating us? And if there's a challenge there, maybe we've skewed a bit. Let's draw back to God. Let's pray for each other. Let's talk about how we can, again, impact the world and how God can use us. Let's just discuss that as groups. So, hey guys, thanks for being with us this week. We really appreciate that. It's been great to talk about singles and also issues around how we can idolize family. One thing I would like you to kind of pray into and to be thinking about, who you can invite out is Easter. So Easter's on the 21st, and there's a whole bunch of services for each site. If you could check out the website, this is Village Church, and also look at a time where you can invite somebody out, that would be fantastic. So we're seeing you next week.